Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Oh, okay. Hard left. Beautiful photograph of a sunset. I'm assuming it's a sunset because the color. Oh, dude, if it's a sunrise, it could be a sunrise, but it's probably.
It's actually a sunrise.
It is?
I'm pretty sure. I'll have to look at which ones I put. I mean, I have so many on my phone. It's sunrise.
No problem. So there's a large body of water on the right. Knowing the Great Lakes, it could be a lake, like Lake Superior, but it could be the sea or an ocean. The color is super, super warm and oranges, and the sky has the gray. If I were to put my money on it, though, I would say it's a sunset.
Sunset? Okay, it might be if it's to the right.
Idiot.
I'll have to look.
Such an idiot. Okay, anyways, sorry. Okay, so it's...
You very well could, because the ones... So you're totally right.
I'm totally right. I said both. I said, it could be a sunrise or a sunset.
Basically, it's the sun, and it's doing what the sun does, which is to shine its light, right?
Funny. Okay, so anyways, so the sky behind is beautiful. It's orange. It's a great shot because everything's in focus and delicious and great. On the left in the foreground is what looks like kind of pier / walkway with docks, and which frames the image very nicely is this beautiful tree, deciduous tree, I guess. So what's the significance of this one?
Well, when COVID happened, I lived in the city, and I loved living in the city. Oh, I looked at the picture. It is actually, if you can imagine, that is a sunrise.
Aha. I said it, but didn't say it. Yes,
that's right.
You're right.
It does look as brilliant as a sunset that we typically get. And I chose to put my city life in storage and move out to the lake full time. And this is actually the house where I lived as I grew up. My mom and I renovated it about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was using it as a cottage, like coming whenever I felt like it and often on the weekends. But then I was like, why am I in the city? Like, what do I need to be here for? And because I don't need the airports. And if I do, I can drive off to Detroit or I can go to London, whichever way I need. I'm sort of halfway in between. And
where is in between?
In between London, Ontario and Detroit. It's a little village just outside of Chatham area. I don't know if you know the area at all in Ontario.
Ontario. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Canadian.
Is that Lake Ontario or is that like a smaller lake?
Lake Erie. So it's one of our Great Lakes.
Got it.
But just
okay,
up the river from the other one,
nice.
From Lake Ontario, but not far. So I'm closer to Detroit than I would be to Toronto.
Okay.
And I just think there's so much. It sounds a little bit contradictive to what I was saying in the beginning, because we do need that mindfulness. We do need that time when we are connected to nature. I'm hugely, I just feel at peace when I am.
For the listener, I'm nodding.
Yeah.
Yes.
The thing is that if we don't solve the fundamental issue of feeling completely stressed and reacting to everything that's happening in front of us and, dramatizing the stuff in our lives or taking control of our to-do list and feeling overwhelmed by that, then we're not going to have the capacity left in order to enjoy the sunset, right? Mm-hmm. Or the sunrise, mm-hmm. whichever we prefer to call it. And that, I watch a lot of sunrises because when I'm writing a book, which I'm doing now, my brain, like at about 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, whenever it happens to be, just goes into high gear and it goes, shoo, and I'm like, I gotta get up. And I go mm-hmm. and I start writing. And then the sun rises as I'm writing. And so that was taken from my window that morning. And I usually take one almost every morning.
That's from your window?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the photograph, what's spectacular? Well, first of all, the water is all golden on fire. Yeah. So what's great is that the water is reflecting the sky. And mm-hmm. so it's quite gold and everything. But what's amazing is that your window is really at the waterline. Like the level seems basically not that elevated. So the perspective is really, I mean, it's stunning.
Yeah, the water's right there.
Yeah.
I love it.
So talk to me about mental health and the role of the outdoors. Like, how does this feed into? Because you've written a book, you've written a few books, 5 books.
Yeah.
You've spoken, you've championed, you've tried to get people to shift their awareness and their behavior. But why exactly is that approach better than the others?
Well, first of all, it's not about adding more things into your day. So some people would say you need to meditate for an hour in the morning. Okay. Like there's the pinnacle. Stress avoidant culture is like so admirable, right? Like that's what we're aiming for. Well, if I do that, I actually lose my creativity for the day. It does not work for me. It doesn't give me my most power and it doesn't keep me in my most essence.
Mm-hmm.
However, what I have learned through my problem solving framework is that the way that I connect with nature, the way that I can reap the benefits of something like adding meditation into your day is through mindfulness of being aware of what's happening around me in nature. So every time I step out of the car, I look up in the sky. And most of the time that goes, and I just soak it in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When I'm typing and thinking, instead of going on social media or whatever, I will do the social media, but I'll catch myself and I'll look up and go and give myself permission to do that. And so it takes 2 seconds to do that. And it can fuel that peacefulness without having to judge yourself that you don't have an hour or you don't want to sit for an hour and meditate. Not that that is wrong. For some people, that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what they need. For a lot of people, I hear things like, I should do this, I should do that. There's a lot of things we can do before we get there that actually will make a huge impact on your overall happiness, your level of peace, your contentment through which you see the world
Mm-hmm.
without the judgment and without the
Right.
expectation that that's the only way.
But okay, so then in its application, so when you go and you speak in front of the Canadian Mental Health Association or whatever it's called, and you're saying the mindset, the perspective, the assumptions need to be upgraded because you're kind of pointing people in the wrong paradigm or whatever you want to call it, perspective.
Yeah.
So how do you articulate or explain to somebody the essence of the difference?
Mm. Well, they have an entire methodology, which helps,
Okay.
right? So there's an entire system behind this, right? It's a system of thinking, believing, approaching the world around us.
Mm.
When I started giving talks on resilience, I went online. I was like, how stressed out was I in that worst time when my doctor told me to go on disability and I would never work full time again and be off pain medication? And I went online thinking back to that time and I did what they call an online stress test.
Mm-hmm.
So, unlike a stress test that measures your heart rate and how you're doing when you run on a treadmill, this type of stress test actually measures how many stressors you're experiencing and therefore how stressed out you are.
Right.
Right.
And this is a qualitative thing, like describe these elements. Okay. It's not actually measuring.
So it actually is like if somebody dies in your life, that's worth 45 points, say.
Right. Okay.
If
Okay.
you
Okay. Okay.
move, that's worth 30 points.
Yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
injury, that's going to be worth this many points. And I like whatever the points are depends on which test you do. So I went online, I found one of these and I filled it out thinking to everything that I knew happened to me in that time. And
Mm-hmm.
my score was 734. Okay. The legend said, if you have a score over 330, seek professional help immediately.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
The issue with this is that if I was that clinically overstressed, which I was
Mm-hmm.
going through, although they're all like, financial challenges and injuries and chronic pain and how many people died and all of that, that was objectively what the medical community would say my stress was.
Mm-hmm.
but I still managed to stay in business. Yes, the behind the scenes was a disaster. Yes, I was, collapsing in pain some nights. Yes, I had to call my mom and have her come and become my chauffeur, right? As one of my key
Mm-hmm.
strategies, because I couldn't drive myself long distances back then. There were all of these different things that were troublesome, but yet I continued to build my business. I continued to keep a smile on my face. I continued to build my relationships. And there seemed to be a mismatch in the math.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So my belief is not, and I mean, this is a very stoic type philosophy where it's not about what's happening around you. It's about your reaction to and your perception of what's happening to around you.
Hallelujah. Yes.
Right. And I knew that, like I figured that part out, but I couldn't figure out how to articulate it. So I knew what kind of emotion each thing deserved.
Okay. Okay.
So that was the methodology, created like a system for applying all that. And also, it couldn't just be one methodology, right? Like you couldn't just, like in my opinion, you can't just be great at mindset and not have emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can't just be great at your emotions and not have the right mindset. Just like you can't ignore your physical, like you need all of it coming together.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah. A
need,
holistic approach for sure.
yeah. And so my whole methodology is about, you don't have to learn all of the different, like as much in depth as most of us who have this level of curiosity go into. My methodology is about like, here's a critical thinking checklist. If you're in the weeds and you feel overwhelmed, start at the top, go to the bottom. When you feel better, you're good.
Mm.
That's how it is designed.
Okay. Allison, burn in people's heads. Where can they go right now to pause the audio and just look it up online? What is your website so they can learn all about you?
Sure. It's my name is Allison Graham and it's .com. So AllisonGraham.com. And I'm most active over on LinkedIn, which is of course where we're
Okay.
connected. Yeah.
It'll all be in the show notes and all that business. I love it. And as you're speaking, there's this gorgeous photo of a sunset, which we it's sort of like flying. We sort of take it for granted that we fly. It's like, yeah, it took like 6 hours for me to get to Savannah, Georgia, whatever it was, but it's a miracle. And in the same way, we're talking right now and taking it so for granted that you can freeze the scene. And as you're speaking and telling me about this really heavy thing about your own personal struggle. And look, I've been hospitalized. I've had a neurologist. I've had this, and I totally understood when you said it's not necessarily the event, but it's your relationship to the event that and how you interpret and sort of make sense of it that changes your relationship to what's happening. So, I was in the I was in the tsunami, and so when I was in the tsunami, a lot of people died, of course, and I was in the water and very nearly died, and I very consciously knew and understood that I have to sort of interpret that event in an empowering way so that I wouldn't be traumatized by it. And so it's not exactly what you're saying, but it's in the same area of the library.
It sure is. And here's the thing, that is a true survival stress experience.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you can't turn off like every hormone. I can't even imagine. Like I would love to just be quiet and interview you about that experience because I'm
Some
sure
other
that's
year.
absolutely fascinating. You can't turn off those survival stress hormones,
Of course not. Yeah, yeah.
right? That's part of it.
Nope. It's part of your body. Yeah.
There are people who are spending their days acting at the same level of stress with their hormones firing on all cylinders based on the fact that they have a lot to do or they're stuck in traffic.
Right. Okay. 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 Okay.
Think about that, right?
Okay.
How are you? I'm so stressed. I'm stressed. I'm stressed. Oh my God, it's so stressful. It's so stressful. Like, I mean, if you listen to conversation for the next 48 hours, and I'm going to challenge every person to do that,
Mm-hmm.
how many times do you hear the word stressed? I'm going to suggest it's over 10. at least.
This is really great. Allison, this is awesome.
Right? Whereas what you went through is true trauma and it needs to be processed. So when we go through a true adversity, we need to my philosophy is we go through the adversity, we can't judge ourselves for it. We have to process it because if we just deny and deflect, my doctor used to call it my gotta go technique. And I was very good at it. I don't like how it feels over here. So I'm going to go over there.
Yeah.
Hang out for a bit. And that all that does is stuff it down further into our being because we're not sure how to process it. Where my philosophy comes into play is honoring that and not creating destructive, unnecessary stress around it.
Okay. Capiche. Oh, no, sorry. Capisco. Thank you. I get
Perfect. Yeah.
Shall we move on to the next photo? Or do you want to continue on that vein? I mean, this is your ride. Like, do you want to move on?
No, yeah, sure. No, it's your podcast. Do you want to talk about the tsunami? Do you want to tell us all about it? Have you done some stories on it or not yet? You're not ready.
It's on the website in the About page.
I think
I wrote a story about it. But for the listener, here's how I connect to what you're saying is that, so those experiences to me were empowering. You know, in a sense, I know it sounds kind of twisted, but it's like, I wish you could all have those experiences and come out of them the way I did, because no trauma, no stress. It's like, it's this feeling of I survived, and other things helped create the anxiety. But I'm sure all of it gets baked into on a cellular level and whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Enough about me. Let's talk about your next photo. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.